Okay, we'll call the Shakopee City Council meeting for March 6th, 2024 to order. Would you please take the roll?
Councilman Delaney.
Here.
Councilman Whiting. Here. Councilman Contreras. Here. Councilman Lara.
Here.
Mayor Lehman.
Here. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, thank you. And just a reminder for council and staff to please speak into the microphones. Item number 3, special presentations, 3A, Officer of the Year. Chief Tate.
Members of council, I hope you all feel safe tonight with the police presence in the chambers.
The rest is Shakopee.
Always an honor and a privilege to present this award. We have so many great people that work under our roof, and I'm honored and privileged again to present this. And this time our 2023 Officer of the Year goes to Detective Michael McLean. From the nomination process to the selection process, this is done as a group effort in the police department. Representation from all different disciplines in the department select our Officer of the Year. Michael received multiple nominations from his peers and supervisors this year. Many cases that he worked were highlighted. I'm just going to try and really condense, probably not do them justice, but try and get a few of them highlighted for you here. One is a fraud case that started with a local business losing over $30,000. And Michael started unwrapping this case, spent an enormous amount of time. I know this because I kept walking by his office. Where are we at with this case? Chief, I keep finding more stuff. Chief, I keep uncovering more stuff. I bet he told me that 50 times throughout the course of the winter here, and last fall, but he did a lot of work for other cities in everything that he uncovered through social media, warrants, researching transaction history. It took him throughout the state and out of the state into Wisconsin. I think he located a pretty sizable trailer full of stolen merchandise coming back. This is a career criminal. When this is all said and done, I think we're going to be over $1 million probably in totality. Fox 9 recently did a feature on this case, and this individual, I don't know if we've ever had anyone charged as a career criminal. That is a thing. This individual, because of his hard work, is going to hopefully go away for a long time and stop stealing from everybody else. One of the next cases that was brought up involved a person firing rounds off in the staircase of an apartment building here in town. Michael interviewed the victim who had a gun pointed at them, collected evidence. I don't know what it was that made him go back to the scene, but he went back to the scene when he learned that the suspect had taken a bite out of a slice of pizza. I love this. He collected the piece of pizza, and through his investigation, submitted not just the shell casings but the pizza to the BCA. He was able to get a warrant for the suspect's DNA when he identified that suspect. Lo and behold, the DNA on that slice of pizza came back to the suspect, and he is now going to go up for second-degree assault. So fantastic, creative work. So many cases involving real bad things, like first-degree criminal, sexual assault cases, to something that he's gotten very good at, and they're hard, they're complex, but Bitcoin fraud cases like that. Michael's been able to get return money back to people who've been frauded on Bitcoin and serve suspects information to federal authorities. Again, a lot of cases, a lot of complex cases that he's done, successfully investigated. But one of the things I want to highlight about Michael, he has great empathy for his victims. and his attitude. He's always smiling. I love coming into the office every morning. I sit down at my computer. It doesn't take too long, and it's Michael that's making the lap around the PD. Good morning, everyone. How we doing? With a smile, and gets the day started in the right way. So it's no wonder multiple coworkers nominated him for Officer of the Year. Congratulations to you, Michael. Thank you for all your contributions to our police department. We are lucky to have you. You are more than deserving of this award and the recognition. Thank you.
Photo.
I'd be remiss if I didn't take a chance to thank, look at all these wonderful people that I work with. So I just, thank you to them, and thank you for nominating me. I mean, it's extremely humbling, and it's pretty awesome when such great people that I work with, nominate me for something like this. And then obviously my family. My wife has been with me through my entire career, and there's been things that they've had to sacrifice for the certain positions that I've done in my career, so thank you.
All right, if we can get a photo with the council members, please.
Picture, I just wanted to say that, we certainly appreciate your efforts in our community. It's important to all of us in Shakopee, and we appreciate the efforts by all the officers to make Shakopee an enjoyable place to live and a safe place to live. So thank you, and thank all of you officers for the work that you do for our community.
Awesome.
Now the party starts.
Take us to item 3B. 3B is appreciation of board and commission members. And who is taking that one?
I'm going to say here.
You can do it right from there.
All right, so we have two of our planning board and our board of adjustment of appeals commissioners here with us tonight. Our first one would be Dan Olson, and then we have Kent Robbins. Kent spent 12 years of service with the city, and Dan spent 5 years with the city. And I believe you guys are hanging up your hats. We wanted to just give you guys our appreciation and thank you for your service for the city. If you guys want to say.
Thank you, Councilor Lara. Is there anybody else? Mr. Whiting?
Yeah, thank you. I think, I don't know if I appointed both of you, but it's been 12 years since I appointed Kent, so it's been a long time. I've been out there and doing a great job leading the planning and board of adjustment. So thank you both. I appreciate your service.
First.
I just thank you for your service and your time. It's much appreciated. Not everybody wants to do it, so thank you for such a long time, both of you.
Mr. Delaney?
Just adding to that, thank you for stepping up and volunteering and serving. Thank you.
Last but not least, myself. First to Mr. Kent Robbins. I don't think there's anybody in town that doesn't know how much effort you've put into the years that you served Shakopee on the Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment Appeals. Kent was termed out It's a loss of a great asset, but I'm sure, you know, he's also doing it with Scott County and every other thing he gets his little mitts into, so I'm sure he will be back. Appreciate deeply your service and your level-headed thought process to the items before you. And the same applies to you, Dan. Really appreciate your service to the community and to council and staff. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you very much.
I think did you want to say something too?
Could I say? Sure.
We'll give you each a minute or two.
I want to just,
Can you use the microphone, please?
you know, I tell that to people.
I've seen you tell people that. Maybe that's where I got it from.
I want to just to say a few thank yous. First of all, to the city council and mayor, who in 2012 appointed me to the planning commission and reappointed me. You know, I'm very appreciative of the confidence you showed in my abilities. Thank you. To the citizens of Shakopee, we had a lot of public hearings during that time, and I never can remember one time when the citizens weren't respectful and polite and civil in presenting their views. To my fellow commissioners who put up with me for all that time and for their support in electing me chair. And finally, to the Shakopee Planning and Development staff. I think one of the finest staffs in the state. Kyle Sabota, I think, was on the staff when I was first appointed. But I'm grateful to all of them, and especially to Michael Kiersky. I can't remember a time in all the questions that we would ask Michael, difficult questions about planning, about development, that he couldn't respond and tell us. As chair, he guided us through that, and I hope that all of our deliberations made your job easier when all of those things came to you. So it's been a privilege to serve all these years. I was termed out, but I would do it again tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Kent.
being an election judge, too.
Yeah. You have Lori to thank.
Mr. Olson, did you want to make a couple comments?
And while Dan's making his way up here, I just wanted to make a comment. The reason why I started out is I had the pleasure of serving on the planning board with these two fine gentlemen.
I would just echo what Kent said. It's been truly an honor and a lot of fun to be on the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments and Appeals. And Mr. Kiersky runs a great office, and it's reflective in how well the meetings ran and all the questions were answered. And driving here tonight, and every time I'd come to the Planning Commission, I'm always amazed, just in 5 years, how much development I've seen, whether I drive by Canterbury or along 16, and it's amazing to see, and it's exciting to see as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
One more picture? Or?
Yes.
Should we do a picture?
Do we want to do
a picture? Yeah.
push your chairs in?
Yeah.
There's always room for another picture. It's not real. It's not real gold. Don't get us in trouble.
Yeah, finance director, heart attack. He's out of town and he's real cool.
There goes my friend. Wait, is she married again? This little lady.
All right. Concludes today's meeting. Motion to adjourn? No? All right, well, let's see. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda from staff or council?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Council? Nothing? Mr. Whiting,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whiting, seconded by Mr. Delaney. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, consent business. Any changes to the consent agenda? Staff, council?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Council?
We're good.
Okay. Wishes of the body, Mr. Lara?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lara, second by Councilor Contreras. Mr. Reynolds, if you could read the consent agenda, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is the consent agenda for March 6th of 2024. 5A1 are the city council minutes. 5A2 approves 3.2 on-sale wine and Sunday liquor licenses for the Golf Garage LLC. 5A3 is a FEMA assistance to firefighters grant application. 5A4 is a Minnesota DNR Conservation Partners Legacy Expedited Projects Grant application. 5A5 is the Public Works Union contract. 5A6 authorizes advertisement for bids on the Fire Station Number 1 remodel. 5A7 approves a contract for construction management services with Terra Construction. 5B1 is the approval of the 2024 tree purchase orders. 5B2 is a contract award for the 2024 cured-in-place sewer pipe lining project. 5B3 is the Colburn Drive extension that approves plans and authorizes bidding. 5C1 is surplus property and a surplus property disposal and purchase of a fire truck. 5C2 is a donation from the Home Depot. Thank you very much, by the way, Home Depot.
Thank you.
5D1 are general conditions amendment to Kraus Anderson's contract for Sand Venture. 5E1 is the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force Renewal Agreement. 5F1 is the surplus equipment and property removal. And finally, 5F2 is a recycling grant for our annual cleanup days.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That will take us, approval of the consent, take us down to item number 6. Recognition of citizens by the city council for an item not on our agenda. If there's anybody here that would like to address the council for an item not on the agenda, please step up to the microphone there. You can go ahead and pull that microphone closer. It does move on the table.
Okay.
And you can pull a chair up too if you want, 2 chairs.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Hannah Woolsey. This is April Bankston. We are residents of Shakopee. We live on Carner Drive. We are here with several of our neighbors in response to a communication that we learned that there would be a path being constructed behind our homes. It is an easement that the city has had for, I think it went into place 18 years ago. Effectively, I think it was, 15 or 18 years ago.
Let me just stop. Just for our reference, can you tell us which area of town this would be?
Absolutely. So it's,
Well, you mentioned the new construction up Canterbury, that new development there with those homes. So we're on Carner Drive, which used to be a dead end. And then because of that new development, now we're not a dead end anymore.
it's off Mystic Lake. It's the
Thrush.
development next to Mystic Lake.
Oh, Thrush.
Okay. Continue, sorry.
Okay, no, I'm glad you asked the question. So we're hoping to introduce the topic tonight, and then if we need to get on as an agenda item in the future to further discuss, we're happy to do that. But ultimately, we're respectfully requesting that you end the easement on our properties and abandon the plans to build a walking path, and that we explore alternative options. And here's kind of our ask and our reasons. First and foremost, our neighborhood has been maturing for 15 years. Some of our neighbors have lived there since the beginning. They've lived there for 15 years in their current homes. My family's coming up on 9 years. And during those 15 years, the city hasn't connected our neighborhood via sidewalk, path. It wasn't a through street for 15 years. And so we had a lot of privacy. Now that there's a new neighborhood that has made our street a through street, we've got a lot of traffic, which is to be expected. Shakopee's growing in a lot of respects, but there's a lot of traffic through there. And there are already paths through the new neighborhood that all connect onto Thrush and then bring that new neighborhood out to the other existing neighborhoods. So we feel like that's kind of already been solved for. The second point is until 2 years ago, our street was not a through street. As I said, we did have a significant amount of privacy. Now there's a lot of traffic going through on the front ends of our homes. This would bring a significant amount of traffic on the back ends of our homes. And Josh and April are on the end. They were on the dead end part, and they already have a path that was put in along the entire east side of their property. The proposed plan would add an additional path through the entire south side of their property, having intersecting paths. They've already had a fair amount of golf cart traffic and other things, and we just think an intersecting path and would add that much more traffic and activity to that area. The third point is really appealing to the emotions, which is, there was a reasonable assumption when the neighborhood was constructed and we knew the easement was there that within a year or two there would be paths put in that would connect our neighborhood. That wasn't exercised. So we haven't had the 13 to 15 years of maturity and growth and building up privacy and a barrier between our homes and our backyards and a potential path. So, for example, the path would go directly through, I have my photos, I guess I left them back there, but it's very, very close to one of our neighbors' homes, to V-Rock and Elena's home. The path is like 25 feet from their backyard.
1 second.
Put red
There
on the
is an
table there.
X, there could be a red X on that table if you could put the picture centered on
look
that
at
red
that.
X. And that might get it on our screen for us. Who do we,
Lori's just punching buttons over here, so we'll see what happens. There it is.
so we're gonna have to
Turn it upside down.
flip it around and
There you go.
This is taken from the stake that was put in. You can see that it's very, very close to where their elderly parents plant their garden and grow their own food, but there's absolutely no privacy. Similarly, TJ and Brenda, they have a huge patch of wildflowers currently in that path that is a home to a significant bee population that's been maturing for more than 10 years. That would be destroyed. My husband and we learned a couple years ago while we were putting a pool in our backyard that our house was actually set 4 feet back further than it was supposed to be based on all the planning. So we lost 4 feet into our backyard. So this path would butt up to our fence, which would need to be replaced because pools are a natural nuisance. Even though we have the appropriate cover and safeguard, we have a fence. It wouldn't be high enough to deter children from something like that. So it'd be a significant expense to replace that. So, this has been an existing maturing neighborhood for a long period of time. We feel like our neighborhood is adequately, and the other neighborhood that's new to the area is adequately connected to the rest of the adjoining neighborhoods, and we respectfully request that we explore alternative options to a path directly in our backyards.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff, if you could just send us out a picture of the neighborhood and where the easements go and what's existing and,
Summary.
yeah. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address the city council on a matter not on the agenda? Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, business removed from consent agenda. Didn't have any. Item number 8, recess for Economic Development Authority meeting. Motion to recess. Mr. Lara?
I'll make that motion to recess to the Economic Development Authority meeting.
Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Lara, second by Mr. Delaney. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are in recess, is it recess? Recess, we are in recess to the Economic Development. Madam President.
Thank you. I call to order the Shakopee Economic Development Authority meeting for March 6, 2024. City Clerk, if you could please make note of the roll. That's number 1. Number 2, if we could approve the agenda that we have in front of us.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Whiting has the motion. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Commissioner Delaney. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Where are we? Number 3, consent business. On that, we have our EDA minutes. Any questions on our EDA minutes? That's it? No? Our EDA minutes? Okay, sir?
Madam
Go ahead.
President, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Perfect. We have a motion. Do we have a second for
I'll
that?
second.
Second for Commissioner Lara. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, we don't have any general business. Number 5, we have our EDA bill list. Any questions on that tonight?
No questions.
No questions on this side none? Okay. All right, now number 6, anybody like to make an adjournment?
Make a motion that we adjourn till Tuesday, April 2nd at 7 p.m.
Do we have a second? We have a second. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are adjourned.
Good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
That was so
President.
long.
May have been a new EDA record possibly.
It
We'll have to
is.
check
I was
into that.
timing it, and that actually beats the old one that Councilor Whiting once
I
held.
stutter. Sorry. job.
Good, it's a thank you.
All right, we'll bring the city council meeting back into order. We are on item 10A1, contract with Corrective asphalt material for reclamite pavement preservation. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Mr. Mayor, you did pronounce that correctly. Nice job. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the city's pavement management program and to introduce you to not a new but a alternate pavement preservation technique that I would like to provide an update to the city council on. Just to start out here, I want to give you a highlight of our current pavement management program. The city has a very effective pavement management plan in place that's designed to prolong the life cycle of our roadways. So I've laid out an initial list of how we maintain our roadways here from the start of year 1, where we first build a new street. Within the first few years, we crack seal our pavements and then put a chip seal coat on the roadways. So that's where we're putting tar and toilet paper on the roads, and then putting the rock chip layer on top of that road. What that's designed to do is prevent more water intrusion through the streets to prolong their lives and to delay some more of that cracking. Normally, we would wait about 10 years, and then if there's any deficiencies in the roadway that have developed, we'd patch some of those roadways up and then provide another chip seal coat to hide some of those corrections. About year 20 into the pavement life cycle, we'll replace the top 2 inches of that pavement, or we're not replacing the whole section of the pavement, but milling off 2 inches and providing a new surface coat of the roadway. That's designed to get us another 15 to 20 years out of our road. Again, through about 10 years after that, we're going to be repatching, crack sealing, and then chip seal coating the road with the goal to get 35 to 40 years out of our pavement. By that point, most of those roadways will be completely falling apart, and we're going to be completely replacing the roadway, excavating out the sand and gravel, and then giving us a brand new street to start over at year 0. The cost of those maintenance practices really goes up as you go into that reconstruct. So when we're talking about crack sealing and chip seal coating on a cost per foot basis, those are very small costs. So those are techniques that we can use throughout the life cycle of the roadway that are a minor investment to try to make the road last longer. Once we start getting into pavement overlays and reconstructs, that's where we're talking about 10 times more investment that we have to put into the roadway to preserve it longer. Now, why is that important? Why do we do pavement management? Why does it matter? Because when we get into those larger cost items, overlaying, reconstructing of the street, that's a big investment that we have to put into the roadway. So the goal is to extend the life of the roadways as long as we can before we have to introduce those higher cost techniques. Really what the technical term of that is extending the life of the road is elongating the pavement curve. Now what I show here is an example of a few pavement curves. The red is a goal that we'd like to achieve where we're extending the life of the roadway before we have to get to that red dash line where we have to put a high cost investment to get it back to that high serviceability of the roadway. Those smaller cost practices that we do throughout the life is supposed to extend when we need to actually do those high cost measures. I want to get into a little bit of the details about asphalt pavement itself, because that's going to lead into the conversation of some of these new techniques that I'll be introducing you tonight. So what is asphalt? What is pavement, the blacktop that's on our roadways? It's really made of two things. It's made of an asphalt binder and aggregates or rock. 95% of that pavement is rock and sand. That's really what gives the pavement its strengths that can hold the cars up over a long period of time. But only 5% of that asphalt is comprised of a binder, which is a liquid petroleum. Essentially what that does, it's the glue that holds the rock together. It provides the durability, the flexibility of a roadway that can withstand the load and holds the rock together so you don't see stripping of the asphalt. It prevents the cracks from happening within the roadway because it holds those rocks together. Now that's extremely important, because if we didn't have that binder, we'd be driving on gravel roadways for the most part. So what happens over time is that binder degrades. It degrades through two different processes. One is a natural process through oxidation. That's where the exposure to the natural elements, to heat, to water, to sand, over time, through just natural environment, that binder loses its chemical properties. The other time that the binder can deteriorate is through a process just creating the asphalt pavement itself. The high temperatures to produce the asphalt pavement actually reduces the effectiveness of that binder. So when we get our brand new asphalt on the trucks, we've already lost a good amount of that binder's chemical properties before it even gets to our roadways itself. There's nothing we can really do about that. And the hot mix asphalt provides a smooth surface of the roadway as opposed to a cold mix where you're going to be riding on bumps. But really what that does is we get a bad product right when it goes down into our roadways. So when that happens, it results in cracking and hardening of the pavement. It creates it to be more brittle. We lose the binder's chemical properties. So the goal that I'm going to introduce to you tonight is how can we fix that binder component of the roadway? How can we make it better? So there's a process that's been around for a long time. Shakopee hasn't taken advantage of this yet. Other communities in the Twin Cities have, but it's technically called pavement rejuvenation, and it's a product called Reclamite. Now what that does is it's designed to be a top-of-the-curve application. So when I showed you that pavement curve, we want to introduce this at the very beginning life cycle of our roadways. And what that does is once it gets into the ground within a year, it penetrates and seals and preserves the surface of that asphalt. It rejuvenates the binder by restoring the chemical properties, which are called maltines, that are lost through that oxidation process and through just the production process. So this basically gives you a brand new binder in the roadway itself that is lost both through oxidation when it hits the temperature and the weathering product and when it's produced. The binder then prevents air and moisture intrusion, again, to prevent cracking, and prolongs the life of the pavement by increasing its durability and flexibility. This product has been known to add 5 to 7 years of service life to our roadways just in each application, which is a big deal because remember when we talked about the pavement curve, the more we can get the life out of our roadways, the longer we can delay those high-cost measures to get it back to a useful roadway. So if we can put this binder application into elongate our curve, we can delay some of our high-cost measures to treat our roadways. Now, what actually is Reclamite and how does it get back into the roadway itself? These two pictures really show the process. So the picture on the left, Reclamite goes down similar to like a fog seal. So it's a liquid application that gets sprayed right onto the roadway itself. Now what happens is the pavement has holes already in it. It's not just a surface that can't suck up anything. So this liquid gets sucked into the asphalt. It goes in within the first 2 to 3 inches of the pavement itself and absorbs that liquid. And then what we do is we put a sand, which is what's shown on the right, that provides some friction so that people can actually drive on the roadway. Through this process, cars can drive on the treated roadway within 30 minutes. So when we look at a residential application or commercial higher traffic roadways, we can keep people off the roadway for 30 minutes while we bring our trucks down the roadway, and then we can get people back on the roadways within 30 minutes. Now, over a period of 2 to 3 weeks, this will continue to soak in. You'll see some color changes of the roadway itself, but that's really the binder soaking into the asphalt. These are some examples from other communities that have treated and have had test sections of Reclamite added to their roadways. Starting from the top left, working to the top right, to the bottom left, bottom right goes from 4 to 8 years to 11 to 20 years of a comparison. So what you can see in the treated sections of roadways, you're not getting that surface cracking. What this is you have a tighter surface of the roadway because that binder isn't degrading and it's holding that rock together. So you don't see the reflective cracking through the roadways, and it's preserved preserving that surface of the asphalt. Now, when we look at a cost comparison, I added Reclamite into this table that I showed you before. This is a low-cost alternative, 12 cents a square foot, which is even less than what you'd pay for a surface chip seal coat, which is 16 cents a square foot. So when we look at as an application that can add 5 to 7 years of pavement life by introducing it right at the beginning of when we either overlay our roadways or brand new construction, this is a low-cost measure that can be introduced to prolong the life of the roadway and give it its properties back that it's supposed to be in place. Again, by introducing this, we're prolonging and delaying the need for those higher cost alternatives. So with that information, next steps and recommendations of the City Council. What are we doing with this? So my recommendation is to install Reclamite in select areas in 2024. We've identified 2 areas in town that haven't had that first surface chip seal coat yet. And in lieu of spending those dollars in 2024 for a surface chip seal coat, we would then replace it with Reclamite. Where we're not chip sealing, we're going to introduce Reclamite. Those are roadways that I'll show you on an exhibit here surrounding Canterbury Park and in a residential neighborhood. The good thing about these areas is they also have gotten a chip seal coat recently in the surrounding roadways, so we can monitor the differences as the roadways go through a similar process. Again, this 2024 application is budgeted through our annual seal coat budget, so it would not add any cost to our budget. Actually, this is a lower cost alternative when we looked at the 12 cents to 16 cents, so we're going to be saving money just in these roadways itself. And then my next steps would be to review the long-term budget impacts and pavement management program. And then implementing this, how does that impact our long-term forecasting conditioning? What do we need to do with our 20-year CIP? Can we adjust our roadways to push some of those dollars out where we're not spending as much up front, but can we extend the life of the roadways more? In addition to Reclamite, I'm looking at another alternative to review our pavement condition index. Annually, what we've done is used interns to rate our pavements to give a 0 to 100 score of our roadways. That process has been okay, but it could be better. And I'm looking at ways to automate that process by using cameras and AI technology to be able to artificially rate our pavements so that it's a consistent process through the city. And then we can take that information and really use these new methods and try to forecast when we need to do these measures, when do we need to spend these dollars to do our mill and overlays and our reconstructions. The goal really is to extend our budgets, to not spend money where it's not needed, to preserve, get the most out of our roadways and still give the city of Shakopee and our residents good infrastructure to drive on. So with that, this is the area that we'd be looking at for Reclamite this year. In Canterbury Park, it's bordered by Unbridled from County Road 83 to the west to Shenandoah Drive down to 12th Avenue, including Shenian Street. And then also there's a section of Windermere Park, or Windermere Development in the 4th edition, which covers Athens Terrace, Abbey Road, and Aloha Avenue. Again, that street just to the east had a chip seal coat, so we'll be able to monitor the differences between Reclamite and seal coating. Your item before you tonight is to approve a contract with Corrective Asphalt Materials to actually install Reclamite and do the sweeping for that. Again, it's a budgeted expense for the seal coat budget. If you agree, we'd ask you to sign that contract and proceed with this for 2024 and then evaluate conditions for the future. And I'm happy to stand for questions.
Questions of staff from council? Mr. Whiting.
I'm kind of concerned about the regulatory components to this chemical we're adding to the asphalt. Does the company, and the other concern is, I'll put them both out there, is there's only one company. And I hate to throw a bid, it's only one company, this is the only shop you can get it. Because I remember when, and Chief Scott can probably verify this, but AFFF was the greatest thing in firefighting, and now we're finding out it's causing cancer to all these firemen. So I want to make sure that this product, 20 years down the line, isn't leaching into our water system somewhere. So that's my concern. Can you direct to that, please?
Yeah, those are both really good questions, and I assume the second one would be asked. The first question is, what actually is it? It's a natural petroleum based product that basically is what's already in our pavements. So whatever we're putting down our roadways today, this Reclamite product is basically the exact same thing that's within the roadway. It's a natural, it's basically it's oil that comes from the ground.
It's natural oil.
It's natural oil. So Corrective Asphalt Materials has taken cores of the roadway. What this does is it only penetrates between the first 2 to 3 inches. We've tested those cores. It doesn't go any further than that because the pavement absorbs it itself. And again, it's a natural petroleum product. Now, Tricor Refinery is the only refinery that produces this product that meets certain characteristics that actually prolong the life of the roadway. It decreases the viscosity of the asphalt pavement itself and increases the penetration index. Now, what that really means is that it's what actually makes the roadway better. It creates a better binder. There hasn't been another producer that can meet the same formulas that they can, and they've only sold this product to one contractor. Now, the prices that Corrective Asphalt Materials has given us are comparable to other cities. It's typically between $1 and $1.20 per square yard for this product. What they've given us is within line of that. I've taken a look at other cities. Woodbury does this application, Lakeville, other East Metro cities. There's probably Edina, there's 10 that have done this for 10 years that have used the same contractor. We're getting the same bids that they are. From a competitive bidding standpoint, if we would put this out to bid, we would only get one bidder that could submit an actual bid because they would be the only ones to meet the specifications. And I'm confident, seeing the quotes that they've given us back, that we're not getting a product that we're paying too much for.
If I have one more, the treatment of the roads doesn't change the surface tension or the slip resistance, so cars don't, during the icy conditions?
Yeah, good question. The only difference you'd see is because we wouldn't be doing that surface chip seal coat right away, so you'd have more of a bare pavement compared to a chip seal coat roadway. So if you go look at Gorman Street right outside City Hall, we haven't put a chip seal coat on that roadway. So it would look very similar to that compared to if you drive down 4th Avenue or 4th Avenue, that just got a chip seal coat this year. So you'd see the difference just on that tread.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Delaney?
Has there been any feedback from other cities that have used this product as far as the extension on the roads?
Yeah, many cities continue to use this. Again, this product has been around for 35 years. More in the Midwest, it's a product that's been around for 10 years. I can tell you, if you go ask the city of Woodbury, they swear by this. They've done it from, they're actually looking at multiple applications through the payment life cycle. They initially started with year 0, and now they're looking at adding it multiple times throughout the payment to try to continue to prolong it. They've been then taking, Corrective Asphalt is very interested in how that process goes too, so they've been working with Woodbury to take cores to see if you do add a second treatment or a third treatment, which we're not talking about today, how effective actually is that in soaking in the pavement. So over time, we're going to have more data and more information, but from the cities that we have talked to, they have seen an improvement in the roadways. I mean, you can just see from those few examples that I showed you that there is a noticeable difference when you look at what roadway has been treated compared to what isn't treated right next to it. It's the same roadway, same construction techniques, same traffic that's been on that road.
Thank you.
Mr. Lara?
Yeah. So could this possibly, if we're adding this, could this possibly replace one of the other steps that we do?
Yeah, good question. So my plan would be to potentially replace chip seal coating. I know if you talk to public works staff that spend all summer sweeping up the rock, they would love to replace seal coating. But seal coating does have benefits too, especially when we talk about patching our roadways and crack sealing our roadways. Putting that chip seal coat really hides the wear and tear and the Band-Aids that we've put on our roadways. So there is value to doing that, and it does also seal the road so we don't get that water intrusion. So what I would envision this does is it delays when we would need to chip seal coat. Potentially that could push it out to after that first mill and overlay if we can see it, but we're going to continue to monitor our roadways to see when that actually would be needed. But this would first replace that first step of that 12 cents a square foot for chip seal coating, 16 cents a square foot for chip seal coating.
Thank you.
The goal would be to reduce pavement costs overall by using this application, not adding another step to increase costs.
All right, my question, sir. The binder, Maltines?
Yes, correct.
Now, I'm assuming we can't order blacktop with more of that in it because it would be so sticky you wouldn't be able to put it down.
Yeah, that is true, and also our roadways need to meet certain specifications from production from the state of Minnesota as well. So no asphalt plant is going to go create a product that no one else will buy or purchase, and that potentially couldn't produce or would be too sticky to put down.
Okay, and my thought process is, so we have a 10-year-old road. It's to the point to where, well, this is probably your street and mine. They were done the same time, third and
Couple
eighth.
years apart.
Third and eighth. So you have a 10-year road, and this reclamite softens it up, okay? So I'm wondering if you went through and did your toilet paper, spot, crack filler stuff, and then softened up that roadway, then put your chip seal down when it was softened up, wouldn't it force it down into it and give you a harder product? On the surface, from a wear standpoint, not necessarily deeper down where you want the flexibility.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So this product is designed to be used at the first introduction of the roadway itself. If you would wait too long for that roadway to be 10 years old, let's say it, you couldn't put enough product down because there would be so many pores within the roadway that it couldn't actually suck up and reintroduce the binder. So what you want to do is use this at the first step of the roadway before you get pavement distresses and before the pavements are too old, so that it can prolong the life of that. You couldn't use this on a roadway that's 10 years old. What we could do is at that point we could patch the roadway, seal coat, chip seal, to get to the next step before you replace the pavement, and then when we do an overlay we could use the reclamite.
So at the roughly 20-year mark where you do the 2-inch overlay, then you could start
Then we
this.
would put another application
Okay.
on. That's exactly right.
Okay, very good. Any other questions of staff? What's the wishes of council? Mr. Whiting?
It seems to me like it's just adding more life to our roads and value. So the 12 cents seems like a good value. So I'd make a motion to approve the contract with Corrective Asphalt Materials LLC in the amount of $85,956 for the 2024 pavement preservation reclamite treatment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whiting, seconded by Mr. Delaney. Discussion on the motion.
One comment. I would like to see some reports back to see if this is working. I mean,
I was
we keep
gonna
throwing
say-
this every year, and
I was
so,
gonna-
well, 20 years, it
Yeah.
really didn't work.
I was going to say the same. The problem is that you're going to have to wait
It's going to be years.
five or more years out to see and then you're going to need a comparable. So I think now would be a good time for your office to find a comparable that's not being treated, roughly same time, same
Take
traffic
pictures.
patterns. Yeah, and then you'll be able to compare the two, like these photos that we had in front of us, to really see how it's working out. Do you know where them photos were taken from? Same climate?
That was the state of Missouri, so in the Midwest, but not the heavy winters that we have.
Okay.
At Mayor and Council, we do have roadways that are test sections that are directly adjacent to these that we will continue to monitor. What we also will do is take cores after the applications are done and test the pavements to prove that we've decreased the viscosity and increased the penetration the way it's supposed to, and we can take those to roadways that are untreated and match those cores up, and Corrective Asphalt will actually perform that testing for us.
And maybe a better approach, instead of us waiting 5-10 years, you could get that information from another Minnesota community that's using it already?
And I do have that information, and I can certainly send that to you. They've provided that to me from adjacent communities in the metro.
Very good. Any other questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Where does that take us to? 10B1? 10B1, and I would assume this is Mr. Michael Kursky. Entertainment overlay zone.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is adoption of the entertainment overlay. So the area that we're talking about using that is this area that's outlined in red. So it's the amphitheater and the area to the southeast on this corner of Canterbury. We're including the Shakopee Public Utilities Water Tower, because there is some opportunity potentially down the road for them to do something with the water tower that would tie it into the entertainment zone.
Put beer in it or something?
For me?
Beer in it and serve it at the concert?
No. What we're looking for is try and create a different character on the street. So here's just some example of concepts of different signs that have been used in other entertainment zones. So more blade signs, neon. And then being able to use the space a little bit more interesting. So this is the Westgate, the two lower right pictures, the Westgate zone in Arizona where the Cardinal Stadium is. This is a major entertainment area. It's got lots of activity year-round. They also have a classic car show that they do in their parking lot. Canterbury's working on, if you remember from the amphitheater, an alley-like experience between some of the buildings so that we'd be able to have more of a pedestrian experience instead of autos. And then here are some examples of larger scale digital signage that's been introduced. This is probably the most successful. This is in the lower two photos are AT&T Plaza. This is a large piece that they show movies on. They also have artwork, and you can see here's a cartoon they were running on it. It's become quite an attraction. They have movies on the square here on Fridays and Saturdays. Excuse me. And then this is an amphitheater in Arizona. To give you an idea, it's a very similar scale. It's 20,000 seats. Their parking lot, they have a large digital board in their parking lot, and also they use it for the smaller stage where they have drive-in concerts when the main facility is not being used. So the big changes, the highlight in the ordinance is music would be able to be played until 11:30 p.m. Typically, the amphitheater music will end at 11, but this allows, if the main act comes on at 9, it allows potential to have an encore or something, so we're not having noise complaints or ticketing. Allows signage flexibility and more of an urban feel to the development that will occur to the south of the amphitheater.
Questions of staff? Mr. Delaney?
Not really questions, more of a concern. I think our time now is 10 o'clock for when noise, I guess our noise complaint, our noise ordinance.
Mayor and Council, that's correct. So right now it's 10 o'clock. If you remember when we did the EAW for the amphitheater, all that noise really goes into the industrial area, and so noise should not be a concern. The developer of the amphitheater has changed the back of the amphitheater to masonry, so that should probably reinforce it because now the sound will not penetrate that masonry and actually will go east and not into any of the residential areas.
Southeast.
Southeast, yep.
Yep. Right toward 169 in the industrial area. The highway will probably be louder than at the highway anyway.
Yep, Mayor and Council, remember during the EAW, the traffic, as the mayor mentioned, on Shenandoah is as loud as the noise would be from the amphitheater.
Just a follow-up to that. If this does pass and go into place, communication's got to be a key, especially for that neighborhood bordering there. I'm almost certain you'll get a noise complaint at some point in time, that people don't know that the ordinance had changed.
Yep, so Mayor and Council will make sure, working with Canterbury and with the amphitheater developer, if this gets adopted, to publicize what the hours will be and how the regulations are different. As some of our development staff are like, everyone's going to want to have a sign or whatever, and I think the whole idea is to really create some energy and life in this area that is not your typical shopping center.
Thank you.
Mr. Lara.
So those pictures that you showed with those, like, the video, like that one right here, so is that something that they're looking to try to incorporate?
All of these, the larger things would come back to you if they should do it. They're just giving them the opportunity. So for instance, we have looked conceptually, for instance, on the water tank of doing an LED board on that would, instead of just saying Shakopee Public Utilities, would talk about, water saving and potentially could have tie it into the amphitheater with who's ever on it, making it a much more landmark. But we haven't gotten that far, but we wanted to make sure we had the capability before we went and spent all that effort. And again, all of those large ones would have to come back to you and the Planning Commission for approval.
Sure. The reason why I asked, because I just remember when on the planning board, when they replaced their Canterbury sign, there was rules enforced about how often the messages can rotate to not disrupt traffic.
Yep, so the mayor and council, I think it'd be a little different on top of the water tower because it's so high in the air, it's really not in the traffic zone. And again, these images, as you can see, are off the roadway. If the amphitheater were to do one of these on the actual amphitheater, it would be far enough from the road that it wouldn't interfere.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody's got the same thoughts. Mr. Whiting?
Yeah, on the lights in the signs, I know we're gonna approve them as they come up, but there's still a lot of residential and some high-end residential not far from that area. Now, I know they kind of expected to move into an entertainment area, but I don't think they expected to move into Vegas. So I'm really concerned that taking all the neon sign rules and all the digital signs rules off of this area could be a slippery slope.
So Mayor and Council, again, these, if they are not oversized, would go to staff, but anything else would go to you. So Planning Commission and you would see that, and that would be up to you. And as everything that goes to Planning Commission, there would be public notice. The good news is this is a pretty isolated corner. There's not a lot of residential anywhere near this. It's across the street is McDonald's, Culver's, a gas station, a warehouse.
If you could put the map up, please. So if you could draw the amphitheater.
Amphitheater's right here, Mayor.
And the projection of the sound is basically this way.
It's this way right here.
And the housing is to the south, okay? And the issue that I think we've had, at least that I've taken phone calls for, are to the south of Old Eagle Creek. And it's coming from the area where the barns are. Well, actually, it's coming from the area where the tracks are with like the snow cross, or when we used to have the concerts in this area where the tracks are, snow cross, all motorcycle racing, things like that, where that noise is more projected closer to the residential than the amphitheater is going to be going into the industrial and toward the highway. So I think I'm okay with the noise aspect from the amphitheater, but this outline goes all the way down, and that piece right there, that noise might be a problem. So what kind of noise would we expect out of that area?
So Mayor and Council, down here, you might have some, somewhere in here, they're talking about doing a public plaza, so you might have some small musical acts or something that would tie into the amphitheater. And it would allow outdoor dining. You know, we have some, not in the B3 zone, but other zones, we have limitations in outdoor dining. So I'm guessing probably in this area where there are currently barns and somewhere down in this area, there'll probably be some outdoor dining.
Outdoor dining is not the kind of noise that I'm concerned of, but a band down in that area might be another story. So if you're telling me it's going to be like the three-piece ensemble playing.
Yep. Something small.
Okay.
Yep.
So that noise is nowhere near the kind of noise that we're thinking about when we think motocross, snowmobile racing, Warped Tour concerts, things like that. Okay, and then my next question or concern, along with Councilor Whiting, was the sign ordinance. I know we went over that sign ordinance. My God, we must have spent a year on it or more. And we came up to this plan with all the stakeholders, and there was many, and they all had their irons in the fire, and now we're changing it. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I understand what you're trying to create, and it looks kind of cool, but I think we're opening up Pandora's box for every area to demand other things also. So,
and Mayor, that's why we're doing this as an overlay.
Right.
So that
Let me finish.
How many other places have amphitheaters? Is
Let me
kind of what I
finish.
told somebody.
I'll finish my thought on it, okay? And then the last thought I had was the amount of traffic anticipated for a major event out here, and all the digital traffic direction signs that we have invested. I want to make sure that any placement of these kind of signs, if this is adopted, aren't taking and distracting the driver from getting to where they're going or leaving, but enjoy it when they're on the interior.
Yep.
Follow me?
So-
What reassurance do we have on that side?
So Mayor and Council, Canterbury and the developer of the amphitheater are doing a fairly extensive and expensive traffic event management plan. And most of the signage for this area is outside of this area, so it's on 169. The city did invest in a large signboard down here. We're, excuse me, relocating one of the ones that's over here further down the road. But the way the traffic really is going to work here, getting out's not going to really be the issue. It's getting people in. And so getting them sooner than later to get off of 169, for instance, and get them on these roads is more critical. So there are going to be either temporary or permanent digital signs off property to direct people to this location. One of the recommendations early on is there's a MnDOT sign right now that says Valley Fair to exit. That will be changed and will say Valley Fair and Amphitheater so people get used to going that way.
We have a digital traffic directional sign on Canterbury.
There's, Mayor and Council, there's a small one that's over here and there's one next to Seagate.
There's one on Canterbury on 83.
Yep, further down, there's a large one right here under the bridge that tells you, hopefully it will say like Amphitheater straight ahead. It's completely programmable.
Right.
One of the things we found with the event management plan and the developer kind of changed their plan is it's going to be first come, first serve now in parking so that when this parking lot fills up, you won't be able to park here and they're going to move you down to the other Canterbury lots.
Okay. And then the last, well, I'll come back. Mr. Lara, you had your hand up?
No, it was answered.
Any other questions?
No, mine's are good.
I had one more. What was it? It was, can't remember. That's all right. Oh, I do remember. And I asked this of staff earlier. I wanted to make sure that the permitting process for large events, whether it's the amphitheater or Canterbury having an event or something, will this overlay like change their process that they go through to, you know, during that process you make an application and been through it myself a few times, you know, you need this many police, this many hours contracted, traffic patterns, you know, noise levels, security things, all kinds of stuff goes into that. This isn't going to change that whole process.
Yes, it will, Mayor. So this is, the amphitheater will have a separate permit. That's why they're doing an event management plan that ties into Canterbury. So there are 40-ish events a year. There'll be an implementation plan. So if it's 10,000 people, 15,000 people, 19,000 people, we already know how many police they need, how long it will take to fill a lot. All of that's already been done. That will be adopted by the council. It's no different than Valley Fair. Valley Fair does not come to you for a permit when they have events. They have events on their property. This will be more sophisticated in that there will be a kind of an event management plan so that they'll know in advance. The developer is going to give the police department at the end of this year, next year's concert booking, so they'll know based on events when they're going to have officers available for traffic control.
Let me see if I can rephrase the question because I'm not sure I'm understanding your answer. The question is, if we don't do this, there's a process that they have to go through prior to putting on a major event.
No.
No.
There's no process that they have to go through.
No, this is, already had an EAW done.
Yep.
And now they're doing an event management plan that's in cooperation with Scott County, MnDOT, and the city. And that says if you have 4,000 people, 10,000 people, 15,000 people, 19,000 people, here are the things you must do. And they will know well in advance who's getting booked into here. They will notify the police department, and then that will implement either one of those stages along the way. So a minimum is they need 5 traffic control officers just for traffic control.
So by doing this, it doesn't change the process that they have to utilize for doing that.
Mayor and Council, yeah, this is strictly kind of a aesthetic.
The answer is no, it doesn't change it. They're still going to go through that process that they've already gone through for all of these events.
But they will not be coming to you for an event permit. They have, this is no different than Valley Fair. It's a separate entity They have a very complex event management plan that will be adopted by Scott County, MnDOT, and the city that, depending what's going on there, whether it's a symphony orchestra or a major headliner, it will trigger certain needs for police officers and traffic control.
So they're still going to have to meet them triggers.
Correct.
Regardless of that. That was really the question. I'm sorry it was difficult, but so the only thing we're changing here is the time in the red area to 11:30 and some signage.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Lara.
So the reason why I will make a motion is, reading through the ordinance, it does say that all their designs and signs will have to come back to the planning commission for approval or recommendation along with us. So should anything seem out of sorts there, we have a chance to still approve or not.
There's only the top one that would come back. The bottom two would not.
The top, right.
The Blade digital neon signs larger in square foot than allowed would go to the planning commission. Blade digital and neon signs that conform to our sign code would be approved by staff, which that's a no-brainer there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the second one we would not see.
And then, Michael, with that second one, the Blade digital neon signs, are we talking about those are going to be kind of on the interior of the buildings?
Mayor and Council, that's correct. So staff in the B3 district downtown, no one ever sees those. Staff approves those because you have a kind of a master plan that allows more flexibility. There are some Blade signs downtown. The Shakopee Flats has got, if you remember, the river on the side of it, and they have different signage on the building that typically you would not see, but it's in the B3 zone. So this is basically for standard Blade signs or neon signs. Staff would approve of those because they meet the current code. Anything else would come back to either Planning Commission or the City Council.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Wishes of council?
So I will make a motion to adopt ordinance 02024-001, creating an entertainment overlay district specifically for the amphitheater area and the area to the south per the included map.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilor Lara, seconded by Councilor Contreras. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Do I have that correct? Okay. Item 10C1. 23 Police Department Annual Report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Before we get into a few of the slides and the numbers, I took a deep breath here after 2023. We knew there were going to be, and we talked about this in previous reports, retirements coming. We knew we were kind of in a tsunami with everybody's age and years of service. 2023, we had 7 sworn officers leave. That represented over 160 years of experience, sworn experience. We had record staff that represented over 25 years of experience leave, and our crime prevention specialist took a promotion to another agency that she had been here 5 years. So you're looking at almost 200 years of experience, institutional knowledge in 1 year that walked out the door last year. I think it's important to kind of keep that perspective when we look through these numbers, because I'm really proud of our staff and some of the things that we were still able to get done and push forward. We were actually, in this climate where it's so hard to find people, we were fully staffed in December. Right now, we're at 49 sworn. We have all our civilian staff positions, knock on wood, staffed right now. With the 2 additional that we have in this budget, we're 3 sworn officers down. There are a lot of departments that wouldn't have been able to keep pushing some of the projects and big projects that we did. We didn't get soaked with overtime. We're able to manage to keep our drug task force agent in the drug task force. We didn't have to pull them back for coverage. our proactive policing unit that we've talked a lot about, we did have to pull back to cover shifts. We were at minimums quite a bit in 2023. But we got through it. It's definitely a different feel, a different era in the police department with so many new faces. But we were able to keep going with some projects. When I mean projects, I mean completely revamping, both in format and updating our policy and procedures. That whole manual process is almost completed. We had a new body and squad camera product come in, a different vendor. Thank you, IT and finance, for all the work. That major undertaking. Our building turned 20 years old. We were able to make a few improvements to that. Investments in officer wellness, lots of software upgrades to products like Gray Key, Celebrate that our detectives use to analyze cell phones and computers, because every case involves a cell phone these days. Our field training process is no longer pen to paper. We have an electronic system that we put in. We have another training software that we implemented last year that tracks all of our training and state mandates. And again, a crime prevention specialist that came in halfway through the year after Night to Unite, and we were still able to push forward with some projects. So very, very proud of the department, and we kept our foot on the gas when frankly, I think it would have been easy to pull back a little bit given staffing challenges and some turnover. So we'll get right into the first slide. I know you're used to seeing it as kind of a broken record, but a good broken record. We keep going down in our crime rate. You remember the community surveys and how people feel about crime and their perception. Generally, people feel very, very comfortable in their neighborhoods in Shakopee, but their overall feeling of safety has always been something that we've been challenged to deal with. And there are probably a lot of reasons. You can't turn your phone on or the news and what's usually leading that. And I think that impacts people's perception of what's really going on. But nevertheless, I can't find a lower crime rate year in our history. I'll acknowledge it's down nationally. I think for different reasons in different neighborhoods, in different cities, different counties. You hear a lot of talk now, well, we're not counting crime like we used to. Some places aren't allowing certain traffic stops, so forth. That's not us. We are still actively proactive in our enforcement and our engagement with the community. I do think moving forward, the marijuana legislation is going to have a pretty big impact on a lot of our seizures, not because we were ticketing and arresting people with marijuana, contrary to popular belief, but you did get a lot of searches because of a odor of marijuana, burned marijuana coming from a car. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. I know a neighboring agency, for example, their last 10 illegal firearms they took off people in their vehicles, 8 of those came from marijuana searches. Smell of marijuana. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. So a lot of our meth, our opiate seizures, things like that, it's the other things you find when you're going through there are probably, well, they will go down. We did see in January our numbers went down from last January. You've heard me say it before, we don't try and get too high, too low, because there's so many factors that contribute to something like this. And again, in particular, retail. There are some stores in here in our city and throughout chain stores that used to call all the time when they had a shoplifter. That doesn't always happen anymore. They have different thresholds before they will call us. So it's not that certain things aren't still happening. In some cases, we're not getting called. Part 1 crimes, our most violent crimes, though, were down over 15%. Arrests were up over 16%. 64% of the individuals that we arrested booked in the Scott County Jail are not from here. It'll be interesting when the amphitheater is open and running full throttle. If I would anticipate that maybe even goes goes up a little bit more. But I'm confident that we don't have the numbers yet, but our case clearance rate for 2023 will be consistent with what we've had in the past. It'll be above the metro average. That's one of our internal goals that we have. And again, this is a slide that we should be proud of, and again, not afraid to reiterate to people that overall Shakopee is a safe community. For starters, the 169 calls, the 2004-22, I'm going to save that till the very, very end, because I've got some information that we were able to obtain once February was done. Hopefully we'll get into a little bit more of what those calls actually represent. Some familiar things that you're going to see here. Again, our calls for service relatively flat, rests up. Why do our officers, if reported crime is down so much, why are we feel busier than ever? And the answer, you've heard me say it before, are mental health calls. It's still our #1 medical. It's not even close. Time, distance, de-escalation, those things take people, they take time. A recent call that we had involved another city, domestic situation, person was in crisis. We stopped them over by the gravel pit. For 2 hours, County Road 83 was shut down, both directions. It took every officer, I think 8 officers, to do that, to properly negotiate with this individual who had a loaded firearm on the passenger seat. That was resolved through some great negotiation by our officer. That individual was transferred to the originating agency. But there's over 2 hours with your entire staff, including some Prior Lake and County, and there's no crime stat for that. In terms of how do we count that? How do we really look into that? We've struggled with that. We actually had one of our officers that was on light duty just dive into this and see what we could come up with. In 2023, we had over 800 calls for service of somebody in a mental crisis. That does not include some things that overlap, like maybe it's a domestic, the call is classified as a domestic, a drug overdose, somebody in psychosis from using drugs, those types of things. We know if we're dealing with someone with homeless, a lot of these mental illness overlaps with a lot of those types of calls. I'm talking about just somebody in mental health crisis. The average mental health call required 2.3 officers per call and was 2.2 hours per call. So over 2 cops for over 2 hours on every mental health crisis call. In 2023, I couldn't believe this, because it's one of the last things we want to do is actually put somebody on a health and safety hold. Last year, we had 358 health and safety holds. That's somebody being transported, either voluntary or through our order, on a health and safety hold and transported to the hospital. I shared these numbers with Amy Jurdy from St. Francis today, and obviously they see it. Some of these mental health calls are the result of their beds being expanded up there at St. Francis. I know she's seen a lot more assaults on her staff, 4 alone just in January. But 358 health and safety holds in 1 year, almost 1 a day. Our coordinated response, social worker started at the end of March in 2023, and he handled 101 referrals in 9 months. And we were pretty picky about what we gave him. Some other cities, you'll see the numbers higher, but they were just throwing everything towards their social worker. We had a few of them saved up, individuals that we had seen over and over again and struggled to get into those services. So that's where our workload is. That is the #1 thing in my 25 years that's changed more than anything, is the frequency and intensity of mental health calls that we go on. It is a daily occurrence, and it takes a lot of horsepower. In terms of the top 10 calls for service, you see a lot of the same folks there. Again, we'll save the Lewis Street Bridge and talk about that a little bit, why that's there for the first time. At the end when we talk about 169. You can see again some of the retail establishments that call when somebody steals something. And then they're not on here because of the SMSC, it's not just one spot that we're responding to, but our SMSC calls for service in 2023, 239 calls. So they'd be number 5, I believe, on that list.
Why are they not on here?
Because one might be one house, and then the next call might be 2 houses down. It might be the cultural center. It's not one location like Walmart. It's throughout the entire our service area
Vicinity.
for the
Right, but we could still
reservation.
use it as just an area.
You could. We do that with 169. That's the entire, from the ferry bridge all the way down to 69. Historically, we've just kept it in a separate category. So, a few other just quick things. Gun permits were down 29%. Our ordinance calls, when you get your hard copy of our annual report, it'll also be online. You'll notice that ordinance calls are down 9%. When you look at that, we classified certain parking violations differently. Our records staff did. That's a big part of it. Our proactive ordinance calls that we initiated were actually up. There's over 2,000 ordinance calls last year. We got to remember the winter that we had. You couldn't see people's, what was underneath the snow in some cases. Or they weren't able to get it out. And then obviously the biggest thing was our long grass and weed complaints last year were non-existent, frankly. I think some of our yards look better now than they did in July. But I wanted to touch on that. Obviously the community survey results and where code enforcement was disappointing compared to 2 years before. I look back at 4 years and it was where it was last year. So I don't know if 2 years ago was an outlier, but it's something we're paying attention to. We are remaining proactive as we can on these types of things. I have no doubt we would have had a lot more calls had it been a normal winter or a normal summer. And then our top 3 crimes, you see the top 2 are always the top 2. You do not see frauds on there. That might be the first time in 10 years that frauds aren't on there. As you may recall, we have a traffic car that is designated for DUI and traffic enforcement full-time, paid for by a grant. Last year was the first year that individual was working an entire year. I think it started in October in 22. He was there all of 2023. You can see we're up, I think, 113 DUIs. It's not all him. That traffic car stopped over 1,600 cars, 1,600 traffic stops. We had another officer do 1,300. I bring that up because between the two of them, they beat a lot of police departments by themselves.
Wow.
Beat what some neighboring agencies have done totally. And not between the two of them and, those, almost 3,000 traffic stops, we did not receive one single complaint from anyone that stopped him. In fact, one of our cars, actually, I got an email from somebody that was stopped, complimented the officer on how polite he was. So they don't know it yet, but we're working on recognizing them for that. Traffic, again, it's important. It's one of our most frequent complaints that we get is, why aren't you stopping here? Stop signs, all of those things. So we wrote 3,835 more warnings than we did tickets, and just under 9,700 stops total as a department. Our DUIs, unfortunately, the people we are arresting, the average DUI is still over a .16. That's the average. We're still, I think it's been 6, 7 years that we've been calculating this, and every year the average person that we are arresting for driving under the influence is more than double the legal limit. Very, very frustrating. A couple other things, you know, Narcan, as it becomes more available, you're seeing a leveling off in a lot of agencies. Ours stayed consistent. I think it was 33 times we administered Narcan last year. It's kind of everywhere, which is a good thing, and you're seeing that in a lot of police departments and fire departments, the trajectory was like this, and it's kind of leveling off, and it's not because it's any less of a problem or fewer people are dying from it. It's because Narcan is more available, and other agencies, other places have it.
Does that one work on the fentanyl?
I'm sorry? Yes.
Does that work on the fentanyl?
Yeah. Where you have problems with it is xylazine. Knock on wood, we have, xylazine is the horse tranquilizer. You see it predominantly out east. It's very, very, very bad stuff, and Narcan will not help you with that. So we've seen traces of it in the state, in the BCA. We're, again, kind of holding our breath here that, and knocking on wood, that it hasn't been as prevalent in the state of Minnesota. But it
Kind
is
of like
very,
that
very
crock
bad.
stuff that came out of Russia years ago. Eats your flesh off your bones.
I want to just highlight the fact that I think we're 2 people away from, in our recovery assistance program, from our 100th scholarship. We started that program in 2015. It's still alive and well. We do not use any still do not use any taxpayer funds for that. Commercial time, if you go on our Facebook, we have an individual, a very kind individual that's doing a charity run on next Saturday out at the Shakopee Bowl. He heard about this program. He's done fundraisers for the hospital and so forth. He asked what he could do, and he's put together this charity run, and all the proceeds go to our crime prevention program to fund the recovery assistance program. So very, very proud of that. Here we go. This slide was not in your packet because we didn't have all of the February data until you had already gotten your stuff. So we were able to put this together either Monday or Tuesday. So let's look at the top box here, which really illustrates the difference between 2 extreme winters. Last year's December, January, February, and this year, December, January, February. So a quick snapshot, you see quite a difference in the crashes that we've had to respond to. You see the Lewis Street Bridge, as I mentioned, was on our top 10 calls for service. That was a big crash area for us last winter. Was out on that bridge for whatever reason. We had a lot of crashes there. We had a lot of activity. We all know we've driven 169 in that area and felt the washboard and everything when we drive over it. There is something different with that road, and we know that when the snow flies, the ice flies, people fly into the ditch or into each other out there. But it's a big call for service. Again, this is just 3-month snapshots. So the one below, the box below, you look at accidents, that's 197 crashes. That encompasses the whole year. That's a lot of crashes for us to respond to on the road. I get it, it's a long road. I've heard, I don't know how many 100,000 people maybe drive that both ways each day. So there's a lot there, and there's a lot of people, but 197 crashes. The hazards and the assists are, in most cases, people going into the ditch. They just didn't hit the cables, and they just need a winch out, something like that we have. So a tremendous amount of activity on there just due to weather.
Chief, are the 1697, is that strictly traffic enforcement stops? We
dialed into that. Of that 16 97, 1,481 are traffic stops that we initiated. So 72% of that overall number, Mayor, the 2,042 calls on 169, 72% of that is us stopping people. Well, why are we out on 169 so much? The reality is we're not dedicating people there. We have, between the entertainment venues and just the main road that is, traffic stops are done a lot differently now. When an officer or license plate readers get a hit, they just don't turn the lights on and stop you. They're running their plates. They're about 3 different types of checks that they do to make sure, A, you're the registered owner, or at least you match the description of the registered owner who might have a felony warrant, and that's why I'm going to stop you. They follow people for a long time. Sometimes that's onto 83, sometimes that's onto 169. So sometimes it's how they call it out. I'm on 169 and 83. Well, they're really just turning onto the on-ramp, but they're really on 83. It gets counted as 169. We really looked at that number because that surprised me, because I'm sitting here, I don't hear or see, even when I'm off duty driving 169, I don't see Shakopee cars sitting there. Occasionally they might, but a lot of it just has to do with the time that it takes before they actually turn their lights on, and where such a volume is. Some of the other traffic stuff makes up the other stuff, Mayor, would be like road rage complaints, people calling in, again, a speeder, erratic driver, those types of things. I was informed the State Patrol has received some extra money specific for enforcement, so here's your warning, in the 169-13 area that they'll be conducting in 2023. So I think you'll see a little bit bigger presence out there, but it's an animal. Sorry, you saw your hand up. Okay.
Question?
No.
They're changing their drive to work.
You've been warned.
We've been warned.
And we've shared these numbers with the state for years. Whenever the snowflake, they keep getting sucked into the metro area, into Hennepin County a lot, and there's not a lot of state patrol, even though that we have a substation for them here. A lot of them, when they go where the accidents are, and it's kind of first come and first call, and boom, they're gone.
Chief, and I've brought this up with staff in the past, and I'm going to bring it up again. It wasn't very long ago, so it's not that it was just thrown away, but I'm using the scenario of the empty squad car sitting on the road, and everybody slows down just because it's a cop car sitting there. They don't know it's empty, okay? It's the perception, right? Somehow we need to get MnDOT to put in crash reduction / traffic enforcement zone on that stretch. Even if if it can help in any way, it's such a low cost to do that. And it really is our intention, right? Less crashes and enforcement of the road rage or whatever. I know we've been at them a few times about the conditions in the wintertime. Nobody can put their finger down on exactly what the issue is, and we've all driven it. I'm not sure what exactly it is myself, but there is something about that stretch that's just kind of different. I don't know if it's because it's so open.
It makes people want to drive 90.
Well, even if you're driving the speed limit,
You've got the
that's
You've
part
got the
of it, I think.
washboard part, and then you also have, people normally slow down for bridges. You have the 1321 traffic that it's a real pinch point. It can be perfect weather. You turn on the morning traffic report and it's always yellow right there at the bridge and congested.
But the point I'm making is if we could get MnDOT to sign that area, it certainly can't hurt anything, and there's no cost. I mean, it's such a low cost. I know if I was driving down the road and I came across a sign that said this is a crash reductionary traffic enforcement zone, I'm looking down to see if I'm speeding. I might throw my seatbelt on. Oh, wait, I wear that all the time. I'm sorry.
We could probably make a sign if that's what you think.
Well, it's a MnDOT thing.
Oh, okay.
Because it's their right of way. But I think them conversations should be had.
It's something, you know, Alex and I have been working on, and part of the reason that, you know, we really haven't pulled this kind of data on the 169 calls before. It's just always, okay, there's a lot of cars. We know they crash, and it encompasses a really long stretch.
It's 5 miles, isn't it?
Yeah, at least. Yeah, from the bridge to
Well, it's 3 miles from Valley Fair to downtown Shakopee. So it's about 5 or 6 miles from the ferry bridge to 69. And to have, you know, 2,500, 2,400 calls for service a year in a 5-mile stretch, where else does that happen besides, well, I'd be curious to where else that happens.
I don't know how much we're on their radar right now in terms of even the crashes and stuff. They did something, gosh, was it 3-4 years ago out there? They tried something else. It still feels different when you drive, and you know, between 83 and the bridge, you feel it. And for whatever reason, it does. People in that stretch just go into the ditch a lot more than you see any other stretch. But again, 72% of this is us, you know, stopping cars as well. And you see the difference. If we have heavy winters like this winter, that number's way down too. But I think the reality is somewhere in between those, that 146 and the 43 for sure. Right. Mayor, Council, that's all I have for you. You are going to get a complete, you know, with a lot more details in the annual report. You'll get a hard copy, and for those watching, we'll have that up on our website as well. And we continue to plug away on the hiring and retention side of things, which is, you know, we're not the only department. Last I checked, there were still close to 1,000 vacant sworn positions in the state of Minnesota.
I had one more question, Chief. The 23 DWI, you have DWI, you said DUI, but same thing, I guess. The 23 numbers of 257, if I go back and looking at, well, I can go all the way back to what you show on here. That's still quite a bit higher than all the past years. What do we attribute that to? Just more pass-through traffic going through town, less responsible drinkers?
I think there are a couple things. We actually used to do a lot more than what we did last year in the late 90s, early 2000s. You're seeing a lot of newer, I think a lot of our traffic stop numbers are up here. That's when you're a newer officer, you tend to do a lot more traffic stops. As your years go along, so your traffic, you know, tends to slow down quite a bit in terms of proactive enforcement. That's part of it. And you have a car that's dedicated solely to that. I mean, he's almost a third of all those DUI arrests are one person. So doing that, it's, you know, we've done some really good events over the years. The free ride, sober ride home, we kicked that off again with the bars paying for that, helping pay that and doing fundraisers. We did something new this year over Christmas, the designated driver raffle. We had, was it 61 or 62 people enter that raffle over the Christmas. And Brian Turtle, I'll give him the shout out. He donated his wild tickets. We got a couple pair of wild tickets that we drew for somebody who was a designated driver, and the bartender or server gave him the raffle ticket. They fill it out, and we had really, really good participation throughout. So we're trying to do different things too. It's not just arresting people. That program is being replicated in a lot of other cities, and our raffle program, I think Savage is kicking that off soon. So we'll keep going. Everywhere I speak, I bring up those DUI numbers, because that it's not an 08 we're pulling over.
Right. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Mr. Lara?
Yeah. So you'd mentioned we're 3 officers down, correct? How does that, do you know, like, what are the statistics of similar sized cities of ours? How do we compare?
I think Mayor and council, I think we're pretty even. Again, we were fully staffed in December, and I had made sure my colleagues knew that because most of them aren't. And, you know, a couple of these are newer positions. So everybody's in that 2 to 3 in an agency our size, but I don't think any of them had the retirements and so forth that we had in 1 year. It's definitely been a challenge last year and administratively for sure, but we'll see what we can. We're going to be advertising again here soon.
And you have one more piece to that, which you have environments where the police prefer not to be and environments where they prefer to be. And we tend to have an environment with the support of council and stuff and community of the environment where they want to be. There are communities that they would like to leave and go somewhere else because they're just not either appreciated or supported.
I think that's a real important point, Mr. Mayor and members of council. You know, this council has traditionally supported the police department, and you know, that makes a big difference. It makes a big difference, and that's part of the reason why we have the stability that we do have. Although, but as Chief Tate pointed out, losing those 7 last year was a tough thing to overcome, and you know, and I'll say this again, that's why as we go into union negotiations, you're going to see a significant difference in what you would call a normal contract period with this next contract.
And I want to be careful that we don't try to compete with areas that are not supportive and not a positive environment and compare ourselves to them, because they're doing everything in their power to try to attract, and they're going overkill because they've created that environment. And
They're paying more.
Right.
they're paying a premium because they have to, because they didn't do the right thing to begin with. And I don't want to use that as a comparison. I'd rather use a comparison of cities that are supportive and have a true comparison.
Not easy to judge, I would.
It's well, I mean, it is in some cases, but not in totality, you know. We can all watch the news and see where they don't want to be and why. It's pretty straight up. But a lot of them areas aren't close to us, so. All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, department, on behalf of the council for me.
Council, yep. Thank you.
Or us. Item number 11A, City Bill List.
No questions.
Yeah, me neither. No questions.
Side questions, bill list? Okay. 11B, Liaison Report. Where did we start last time?
I think we start this time, no?
I'll start on this end because I have no updates. Quick and easy.
That was fast, thanks. Commissioner Lara. I'm pretty much the same, but I did attend the ribbon cutting at the Sam's Distribution Center.
Very good.
Yep.
21st was the MVTA. Had some discussions, reports from about the 169 Coalition and I-35. And we're working on some communication on sustainable funding for MVTA. You'll hear more about that in the next few months when MVTA is going to come and give us a little song and dance. So no dance, but maybe a song. And remember what date that was, Mr. Reynolds? I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry. It's coming up, and it may change. So.
I'll get it out to you tomorrow. I want
4th.
June 4th. Oh, thank you.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Appreciate that. So that's when the MVTA will be presenting.
Jay, I saw some advertising on social media from MVTA about changes in routes and some other stuff. So they're really getting their information out there, and that's good. Tell them that it's visible.
Right now, you can pick up your route maps out here at City Hall, but just get the app. It's so much easier.
Yeah,
And if you want to know, just like you might have your Uber app just in case, hey, put the MVTA app on there just in case. So.
Very good. Mr. Delaney.
Okay, also attended the ribbon cutting at Sam's Distribution Warehouse. We had a SPUC meeting, nothing new there. Nothing new as far as SPUC meeting. 169 Coalition, our meeting is this coming Thursday. I am interim chair until full meeting in the summer. We'll either make it permanent. We also will be looking for a vice chair this Thursday. As far as keeping our current momentum and priorities, we are seeking a contract with SRF to go out and engage our various stakeholders. We right now have to get priorities set for the next legislative session coming up. Just got to poll the different membership to find out, and other stakeholders to find out where we're going to pursue, see what overlaps with other organizations, and try to grow our membership north and south. That's about it.
Very good. My report is, let's see, Thursday, February 22nd, ribbon cutting at Action Behavior, which was kind of a really cool one. I really enjoyed it. It's what they do is they take young kids with autism and try to develop them to be able to continue on in life somewhat self-sufficient and be able to get the public education side. So that was really cool. Have some friends that have autism, so that was close to me. 22nd of February, staff and IWG, which is the Intergovernment Working Group with the Shakopee, Mdewakanton, Prior Lake, Scott County. Items discussed, ORF. I think if doing this off memory, I didn't write notes, but the ORF, I think they said there will potentially be spring leave and lawn stuff in town here, and then the new ORF is going to open late 24, I believe it was, September, October area. And in between there, you know, they're working on different concepts for the yard waste leaves and stuff like that in between there, and we haven't come up with what's that going to be. So other items discussed, we did discuss the land fee trust, and I asked flat out if there was a rhyme or reason of what they're acquiring, and you know, their answer is they're trying to stay outside of areas that we have plans on developing. The one standalone piece that we saw was a private sale. What else did we discuss? State housing legislation issues, and I'm gonna bring that up under other business because that's a pretty big, important topic that council should probably have an overview of. Wednesday, 28th, Sam's Club Distribution Center ribbon cutting. Councilor Contreras was just awesome reading the proclamation. That was great. I appreciate that. Not that I couldn't do it, but she already started and doing such a great job, I didn't want to bother you. What else did we have? That building, if I got it right, was 365,000 square feet. Is that right? Does that sound right?
Sounds small.
It's big. It's pretty big. They're pretty happy that they've got the interior all ready to go, and they had some stuff moved in and doing their practice stuff on the movements and safety and all that. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. Today was MLC, Metropolitan Legislative Commission. Mr. Reynolds and I attended. There we were talking about the many things happening at the State House that we're going to talk about here shortly under other business. And that's my report. Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. On June 20th, Jackson Elementary will be experiencing a gas leak. Now, you might think, what are we scheduling a gas leak? Well, it's not a real gas leak. It's actually the school district is starting their review for a crisis, and Chief Tate and I actually met in a meeting with them late this afternoon, along with the hospital and the county and the fire department, as we started talking about this particular exercise that's coming up on the 20th, where essentially it's called a reunification exercise. So they'll get everyone out of the school, and of course you'll have teachers. This is basically a walkthrough. Teachers will be acting as students, and then they will be then bused to the high school, and then that is laid out in a unification exercise or a reunification exercise with police and everybody else also part of that, as well as having a emergency operations center basically stood up and then having liaisons working with the other outside groups. So it's more of just a walkthrough at this point. We certainly had discussions about other things we want to do. It's a school, this part is a school-driven exercises, but obviously we're all involved. Both Chief Tate and I talked about afterwards that we originally were looking to bring in April or May our sand table exercise, and we decided that we kind of wanted to wait until we get this, and then we can report on this piece of it, and then we can, you know, hopefully add something more then after it's done as we do our own tabletop exercise. Important reminder, we are still in the process, and I appreciate all of you that have been attending the meetings with the county that specifically talks about emergency operations. And I'm trying to think when the next meeting is. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll get information back out tomorrow to all of you to remind you of that.
14th or 15th, I believe.
Yes, so we've got 3 more meetings on that, and it's very important to understand what all of our roles are during these particular events. And then finally, it's my delight and honor to present to you Kelsey McNutt, who is our new Director of Park and Recreation. Kelsey comes to us from Chaska, otherwise known as Shakopee North, and decided she wanted to come to the mothership and actually experience what it was like being in a larger community and all of our great wonderful parks that we have, including Sand Venture, which we showed her, and she was like, wow, isn't there supposed to be water here? But regardless, we have our challenges in Parks and Recs, as we know currently, but welcome.
Thank you.
And we're delighted to have you, and, you know, she'll be an intricate part of our future, as Jay Tobin was before her.
We'll make sure to give you the challenges you desire.
Probably a few more, yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Item number 12, other business. The one piece I wanted to bring up, and I spoke with Mr. Reynolds about this earlier, is the MLC and some of the stuff that's happening at the State House. And boy, I don't know where to start. I guess the best place to start would be it's, in the words of somebody else, I think the words were, it's, what were them words, Mr. Reynolds? I would say Orwellian to some extent. I think your words were, God, I can't remember what I said, but it fit.
You're speaking of the local control,
well, there's a couple of issues.
That's certainly the overbearing part of it. But
I mean, you know, the basic local control, it's crazy in my world because we currently operate under a system where we have a Minnesota Land Planning Act, which requires a comprehensive planning process submitted to the Met Council. You know, and the Met Council's role is to make sure that our planning doesn't, you know, we don't have two entities side by side, us and Savage example, building different things on a border and not compatible with each other, things like that. But what they're proposing in missing middle housing is not only a loss of control, it's a train wreck. I mean, it's absolutely a train wreck.
it's an abrogation of the whole planning process. The planning process essentially goes away.
Not only that, but they're removing any public commenting, public hearings. You know, you could take a single-family home in your neighborhood and put a sixplex on it, and you know, they're not. You know, we're raising issues and questions about, okay, so let's say Jay and his neighbor want to put sixplexes on their property. Well, what about the water line that can't support that, or the sewer line that can't support that? And then you add on there people before parking and saying you can't require any on-site parking. Where are they going to park now? And now that you have a sixplex with no parking in the snow climate. I mean, this is just like, you know, there's a lot to it. And, you know, all of the MLC cities, which there's many, what are there?
18, 19?
and all there's, so there's a lot of people involved in this, and there's just no willingness to, from the state side anyway, to think this through. There seems to be just a rush to pass without listening to any kind of concern, even addressing, what happens with the infrastructure? You got a brand new street you just laid down. You're going to tear it all up to put bigger infrastructure in. And if the goal is to make this housing more affordable, who's going to pay for the infrastructure to allow this to happen?
So what can this council do?
Well, and that's just it. I think it would probably be in our best interest to have staff form up some kind of a letter, a formal letter with all of our signatures on it, saying, here's our concerns. I'm having a disconnect because this one act, Minnesota state statute, requires us to do comprehensive planning, but then if they're going to take what we currently have in comprehensive plan and not even allow us to operate under that plan, then you throw that out. And, like one city said, their planner, cover your ears, Mr. Kursky, their planner is at awe because what would their job be? Their job is essentially gone because they just have no control. And, it gets deeper into, it's...
I would support a letter if we keep it defined under certain legislative priorities, not a whole shotgun, but the local control I would support.
And what I'm thinking is, what's really missing, and after today's meeting and thinking about it between the meeting and here, and I shared this with Mr. Reynolds in an email, it's what's really missing is the state actually saying to the 7-county metropolitan area and the cities within them 7 counties is to say, here's what we want to accomplish. How can you help us accomplish this? Because the reason I frame it this way is because how we could accomplish some of these things is different than maybe how Prior Lake might accomplish some of these goals, or some of the Plymouth, some of these other cities. All cities are a little different, and how you can actually affect the missing middle housing or housing affordability may be different in different locations. Like here, we have some new areas to develop in the future. We have old areas that redevelop. We have, and you know what? We have done a really good job on the affordable housing side compared to many. And it's almost like we're getting majorly punished for this. Well, there's other communities that have opted not to have any affordable housing. So, I'm at a loss for how you can have a Minnesota Land Planning Act and a comprehensive planning process that required the Met Council to approve it and like I said at this meeting today, if the state legislator is going to do the comp plan for us in passing of bills, then we really don't need a Met Council, do we? So to me, we almost have to be saying, hey, look, we already have this process. This process has been working very well for many years for a lot of different communities. This elected body, make land use decisions that we feel best represents the people that have put us here to make them decisions. And it's a local control issue. So it'd be nice to know exactly what it is they're trying to accomplish. They're going about it all wrong. And matter of fact, one of the points that was raised today that caught my attention was Mayor from, he was 2 over from you on your left, Mr. Reynolds, but
Minnetonka.
If you take a piece of land and under their proposal, you could have a piece of commercial property and you could put a 6-plex, 8-plex on it by right. And, if you take a single-family property and put a fourplex or a sixplex on it by right, does that increase the value of all single-family property land prices because they can now do this by right? And if it does in fact raise the land value of that property, have you achieved the affordability that you were looking for to begin with when you just double or triple the land value? So they're not thinking through some of these things.
I'm not sure what we're going to get done by discussing it, but if you got a point to move a legislative action or priority through.
Yeah, I'd like
then I
to,
think
I'd
we
like
could
to
do
have,
something.
have staff put together an official letter with our concerns, local control, what we have done, the process that has worked for so long, and some of the concerns we have about this proposal, and it probably wouldn't hurt to put in there what we have already done to achieve what they're trying to achieve. And lastly, I would say that a better process coming from the state would be to ask each community within the 7-county metro area how we can achieve some of this stuff through our comprehensive planning processes, because it's going to be different for each community. What do we think? And last, there's nothing that would stop anybody on council from contacting our state representative and senator and
Let's drag them down here.
raise your concerns. If you have concerns with the parking thing, tell them. If you have a concern with the, I don't think we need to be overkill on parking, but on the same token, I mean, one spot for a house is.
So just so I'm understanding this high level, any one of us or any one of our neighbors could essentially raise their house and put multi-family homes on them.
Or put another house in the backyard.
Correct. Without any approval, by right of a property owner, you could exactly do that in the middle of a normal neighborhood.
What makes it really sticky is we don't, and there's the height restriction that they put in that bill is like 150 feet,
150 feet. In the middle of a residential neighborhood.
That's pretty crazy. But the bigger question that I pointed out would be, okay, let's say you want to do that. How are you going to get oversized pipes to serve, 6 units when you've got a half-inch water line coming in or, a standard 4-inch sewer service?
Who's going to pay?
And who's going to pay for it? And if you as a property owner wanted to do this with your property, putting all these extra costs into it in the infrastructure, is it now the affordable housing we're trying to achieve? Right?
No, I get it.
And, this was being discussed early on, and that's kind of why I wanted to have the work session with council about housing affordability and these types of things, not for solutions, but just to pick and get you thinking about it, and things that we might be able to do on our own. And some of these things we've already done in many projects over the years. We've had, I go back to the Dean Lake project in 2003 where we did a tiered housing where you had the smaller lots, smaller village houses, and then you had to step up by, I can't remember what they were called.
Carriage houses.
Right. So we've already done a lot of this stuff. So we are in a very good place to be able to show them what we have already done to achieve what it is they're trying to achieve. This wheel doesn't have to be reinvented or destroyed, and that's kind of where we're at.
Well, I will have a draft to you no later than Friday, all of you, and then we can, if we could have, time is of the essence, if we could have you review it, and we can get it out by Monday if you all approve, so, just as a timeline.
I didn't mean to burn up too much time. I just, after the meeting today, it was like, wow.
That's very concerning.
Yeah.
It is, it's valid.
Any other business?
Nope.
On this side?
Nope.
Item 13.
I will make a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, March 19th, 2024, 7 p.m.
Motion by Councilor Lara, seconded by Councilor Contreras. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. 9:03.